Well, I'm so excited for this. I am so excited, Meryl.
Me too, Jeff. I'm excited too.
All right, so we will go in three, two, one. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Jeff Frick here, coming to you from the home studio for another episode of Turn the Lens. And I've been trying to get this guest on for a while, and maybe it's a little bit of a benefit that we waited so long because there's some new things happening. But, I spend more time on closed caption. I don't know, more time. Probably one of the most tedious and painful processes that I spend a lot of effort on because I think it really matters. And we're so excited to have this guest on. And she's going to tell us why it matters, how we can do a better job, and some of the crazy trends that are happening out there that we got to watch out for. So joining us all the way from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, she's Meryl Evans. She's the founder of Meryl.net. She's a speaker. She does training. She has a TED Talk. And I think she likes to say she's your digital marketing left-hand gal because she's a left-handed person, not a right-handed person, which I think is pretty funny. So Meryl, welcome. Great to see you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm excited to be here and to connect with you. We've known each other for so long. So I'm glad it happened when it happened. Things happen in good time.
Exactly. There's always a reason. So before we jump into kind of best practices, and I have so many questions about how to caption and things I run into all the time, let's remind people why closed caption, it's great for people that, obviously can't hear. You said you were born with hearing free, I think was your great expression. And some people are hard of hearing, which you see annotated HOF, but also sometimes you just miss things, or, even just like watching a movie, the sound goes high or low or this or that. I find myself watching stuff with closed caption all the time. And you presented a bunch of statistics on your page of the proliferation of people watching video with the sound turned off, which you can do if you got a closed caption track.
Yeah, exactly. So I was born profoundly deaf, and I got my first caption decoder when I was about 13 years old. So way back then, before ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is anniversary, 34th anniversary.
I was going to say, when did that pass? When does the ADA pass?
1990. July 26, 1990.
Okay.
So I got my caption decoder before that happened, and you had to hook it up to your TV just like a VCR or a DVD player, and then you turned it on and there was a caption. But back then, not very many things were captioned. Took a while for the catch on. I remember looking at the TV guide and looking for the caption symbol wherever to find something. And then when I went to get movies to watch, I was always looking for that symbol because it was like spotting a unicorn. They were hard to find back then. And now, wow, it's exploded. People tell me all the time they use caption. I was in a show, Mary Poppins, last week, and we captioned 3 shows. And people were raving about it, and none of these people were deaf. So they just got the most benefit out of it and helped them fill in gaps they missed, or maybe misunderstood an actor. So people just love caption, not just for the deaf and hard of hearing.
Right. I'm curious, how did you show captions during your show? And just for people that don't know, you like to participate in musicals. So you were in Mary Poppins for the last month or so. Hopefully that went well. But how did you show closed captions in a live theater show?
So we have an awesome human being named Debbie Pink. She is involved with the theater. We have a deaf theater. We have something called Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, which is people with disabilities, mostly intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism. So they've always captioned those shows. And when I heard about the process, I was like, oh my God, this sounds like a lot. And they do it free. So it is doable. You just have to have talented volunteers ready to step up. So the way they do it is they use PowerPoint and all the slides are black. So it just shows up on the wherever it is as black.
Okay.
And so every slide has dialogue or lyrics or whatever, and they just push the arrow key to go to the next slide. And if somebody adds there, they just adjust as necessary, go up or down, whatever. So yeah, it's all done by hand. And it's not going to be 100% accurate because if it's ad-libbing, we can't change it. But that's okay because it's based on the script we worked off of. So you're getting a story. As somebody who attends musical theater, I'm getting a story. I know what it's about. So, and I know it's not going to be perfect. Because when you use regular human caption by typing, there's always a delay.
Right.
But see, there is no delay. So
Right.
that's where I had the upper hand. Yeah, and we got a big TV screen. We put it off to the side in front of the stage so the actor couldn't use it. And it was just for the audience. Yeah, because sometimes the kids are tempted to look at it. So, but
Right.
it turned out great and it was just marvelous.
That's awesome. So before we jump into some of the details, and that's one of them, is the difficulty in live captioning, just a few more stats about, the benefits and, the use case I always tell people when they don't understand. I'm like, if you're standing in line at the grocery store waiting and you want to catch up on things, you don't want to be a jerk and have your sound up. So I think it goes to this other thing, which you've talked about, which is communicating in multiple fashions concurrently. And I think I broke it down on my post on LinkedIn. I have, there's obviously the audio, there's the captions, you can see the people, there's quotes, there's hashtags, there's all these different things. And I think to your point, everyone is going to receive that differently. Some people might like one mode of learning over another, or maybe they like the auditory, or maybe they like the text. And I think it's a really important concept to think of your consumers and how can you appeal to as many ways that they absorb information and learn concurrently as possible. And I think that's really the bigger theme here, and closed captions is a really important piece of that.
For sure. So whenever I post a video on LinkedIn, I always talk about what's in the video. A lot of people like to do teasers in their post, and you basically have to watch the video to know what it's about.
Right.
The post won't tell you, and that's not a good thing because you're depriving people who don't want to watch the video of the content. So when you do both the post and the video, you're giving people options in how they consume your content. Sometimes I see a 5-minute video. I'm like, I don't have time for 5 minutes, but I can scan the post, that kind of thing. Or if they don't have caption, I can scan the post and not feel angry as I would if they didn't have anything at all.
Right.
It's a compromise for people who don't know how to do captions yet. But captions are everywhere, and there's almost no reason not to do it because there's so many ways you can do it now.
Right.
So when you have a post with the text, you have the video, and you have the caption, you're just reaching a much bigger audience than you would if you used one of those.
Right. So just for clarity, so before ADA, were captions not required on regular television?
They are required on regular television. So the ADA applies to network TV. Actually, it's not the ADA, it's the Communication Act. I'm always forgetting the acronym, but it's from the FCC, and they require anything that's aired on regular network TV or cable TV must be captioned, and that's why everything's captioned now.
Right. It's really interesting. Okay, so let's jump into some of the rules because, like I say, I I spend so much time trying to caption stuff, and it takes me so long. And I have a bunch of questions, but let's just jump into some of your rules. First things first, colors. You suggest actually it's not even black. It's slightly off black and slightly off white, but just simple white on black. No yellow, no orange, no green, no purple, no yellow. So share a little bit about how do we see and, the impact of contrast and something simple like white on black or, almost white on black versus when you start to use colors.
For sure. I remember when I had to capture in Dakota, one day I saw colors. They were testing violet, they were testing yellow, and I was excited because it was a change. But it quickly became a nuisance. It just interrupted the viewing experience. Now, you'll never make 100% of the viewers happy with your caption choices. They just accept that. That's what the captioning 10 guidelines are. So the best practices to help you reach the biggest number of people possible when they cannot control the formatting of the caption. Nowadays, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Netflix, you can go on Hulu and customize the caption. That is the number one way to format caption. It's the user's preference, the user letting them decide how they want the caption. I know people, a small percentage who prefer yellow to white, whereas those of us who don't like it strongly dislike yellow. It's just an uncomfortable color for some people.
Right.
Or if they have a disability that just makes it harder to tolerate.
Right.
And the reason I say off black, off white and off black is just to take the edge off a little bit, because sometimes the black can be too much for some people, so it's kind of a compromise.
Okay.
And it's a stronger contrast between the text and the background. So that's where you'll have the most, if you have to be in control of the color.
Okay, we're going to jump all over the place, because that then begs a question as to the difference between closed captions and open captions. And I think a lot of people mix those up. I certainly do, but I use the expression burned captions, burning it into the MP4 so you can't change it and I can choose exactly what it looks like, versus closed captions, I guess, which is where you have the SRT file that then drives the YouTube or whatever the choice selector thing is, right? So how do you decide when to burn in your captions and when not to burn in your captions? Because like you said, you're probably going to piss off somebody with either choice.
Well, closed caption are always the best option, and here's why. So I have my phone. If I'm watching it this way, it's going to be really small. The caption's going to be really small. But if I turn it sideways and expand, the caption get bigger with the screen. So that's the advantage of closed caption. They are adjustable and you can adjust them. But with open or burned-in caption, nothing changes. You're stuck with that color choice, with that size. Oh my goodness, it was small. Too bad. It doesn't matter how even if you put it on a big screen, it'll still be the same size as you burned it in.
It won't scale with the video? It doesn't rescale with the video as the different size?
Right, correct. It does not, the video, think of the video like a picture, and you know how you can make a picture get bigger, but it loses quality. It becomes grainy when you rush a picture bigger than it actually is.
Right.
So anyway, the closed caption is advantageous and let the viewer be in control. Okay. However, there are situations like if you're using Instagram, TikTok, basically mobile social networks, it's very hard to do a caption file and a caption video that way. When I upload my video to Instagram, I use Instagram captioning tool and I use the most. You can actually a lot of people probably don't know that, but you can make it bigger and you can control the colors a little bit.
Right.
And I can make them black and white and make them a little bigger. So in that case, it's open caption. Instagram does have a captioning option now, but I don't use it because most of the people burn in their caption and it was overlapping the Instagram captions were overlapping the person's video, and I got tired of it. And you can't turn it. Yeah, I wish it would work like LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn, there's the caption button right there on the video. So if somebody has open caption, I can tap it and turn it on, and not have both showing. But Instagram, you have to go into your settings to turn it off and then back out. No, that's too much. So that's the difference. It depends on the circumstances. Sometimes people don't know what it means to have a second file, to have that SRT or a VTT file. They don't know what that means. So open caption could be easier for them.
Okay.
So the key is the caption in the first place. That's step number one. But the rest, you can make progress as you get more experience.
Right. Okay, well, let's stick on this topic, because then the next thing is backgrounds versus putting like on the outside edge of the letters. Or what I do even is just put a full black frame. So I'll often just take the whole video and scooch it up to give myself a nice black frame. So I've got a consistent place for those white letters to lay down. What I'll try to do is actually sync the SRT exactly to the burned in. So when the SRT ones pop up, they actually exactly lay over the top of the I guess open would be the right word to say it. I mean, is that a good best practice? Because oftentimes people just don't leave enough, wiggle room down here. And even on some of your little demo videos, the captions, especially if you have graphics and lower third and their name and this and that, and you lose space. So I find like I'll scale it down and then create a frame and then put the caption so it's got its own place. It's not bothered. There's no distraction behind it, and it's nice and clean and readable.
Well, like Instagram and TikTok have all the overlay stuff on they have your username, they have all the like buttons, and, so I have to put it up higher than I normally would on regular video, because otherwise it gets tight with the overlays. So that one I have to move up. And that's another advantage of closed captions, by the way. So if you playing a video on YouTube and you're playing with the player, the caption move up with the player. So you can still see the caption even when you move it. And then when you move it away, it goes back to where it was before. Oh, and get that. Did you know you can move the caption in Zoom and in YouTube and in other places?
You can move it where?
You can move them.
Yeah.
You can take the caption right now on Zoom and move it anywhere you want.
Oh, within your settings, if it's an SRT?
To drag and drop.
Oh, to drag and drop.
Yeah, to drag and drop. You can do that on YouTube too. So you can always play with it to see if it works. It works in some places, not everywhere. But that would be really nice if it was possible everywhere. But I can't tell you how many times I watched something on Hulu. Hulu is very strange. So, for example, I watched Law and Order SVU on NBC on my TV. The caption and the credit never overlap. So you can see all the starring name, actor's name, and the caption. But on Hulu, they always overlap each other. And I'm constantly having to, if I want to see the name, I have to pause. And it's a pain.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on with that, but it matters. We want to see both. Please don't hide these things, but there are ways around it. And that's another advantage of open caption. You can control the placement of the credit and the caption to ensure they don't overlap. Because not everybody knows how to move caption to. But really, the best thing to do is just put the credits somewhere else and let the caption be where they are.
Right. Okay, so next question. So I use Premiere a lot, and so the question is, kind of how long in terms of duration and number of words per text block. And I looked before we got on. The default on Adobe Premiere is 42 characters, 3 seconds, and no gap in between each block. I think you said you like 32 to 36 characters, something like that. So 2 questions, how many words should there be, or is it the duration? Is it where people take breaks or speaker breaks? How do you figure out where to put the limits and the bounds of a particular block?
Yeah, timing tricky. I didn't know how to do it because I've worked in a caption to know how long something it should be up and not up. It's like 1 second plus 1/4 of a second per caption at the shorter. In other words, no caption should be on for only 1 second. That's too short. And it needs to be slightly over 1 second on the short end. On the long end, I think it was 6 seconds. I never remember because I don't do numbers well. But for the most part, it's 32 characters per line, 64 for both lines together.
Oh,
So
32 per line. Okay.
Yeah, but to make things more complicated, it can depend on some variables because some networks, streaming networks, they format it differently. You may use a certain font that makes it bigger or smaller. There's a lot of things. So there's no perfect number. Captioning key, which is like the premier guide that everybody depends on, say 32. But
Okay.
Netflix, I believe those are 42. And then Amazon is 40 or 30, I don't remember. So they're not consistent. But the key is you don't want it to go all the way across because that turns it into a reading experience. Captions are meant to be scanned, not read. In other words, you should be able to scan it quickly so you can watch the video. But when you have it going all the way across, you're just reading the stomach text you're reading and you're making the video.
Right.
So that's why length is important. And I had my workout had some captions up for a really long time, like 10, 15 seconds. And it was like I stopped doing whatever the instructor said because I didn't realize the timing was off because the caption was up too long.
Right.
So, yeah. So
Okay.
it
So then,
matters. Yeah.
so another question I had, which I think you just answered, was if I have, let's just say I have 8 words, is it better to have 8 words in a line or to stack it 4 words and 4 words? And my assumption that it's better to have it stacked because then your eye doesn't have to move so much and it's more of a blob in the middle versus an extended line. And it sounds like that is true. You want to keep it concentrated in the middle if you can versus having a long line.
Well, it depends.
Of course.
Everything it depends. Like, what was the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Sorry, Mary Poppins in my head. It depends because line breaking, pulling, or division, like captioning key calls it line division. A lot of it say breaking, pulling, and that's the very end of the line when it goes to the next line or to the next caption, depending.
Right.
It makes a difference. So, for example, if my name is the end of line 1 and my last name is the beginning of line 2, that's not good.
Right.
Name first and last name should stay together in one line. So, in other words, I will move my first name to the second line with my last name. So, there are little things like that. And you don't want to end the caption on something like the word and. It's like, and what? So it affects the cognitive, it becomes the cognitive overload because they're having to hold that thought, wait for the next one to pop in. Don't forget, concentration happens quickly, so the brain got to process quickly.
Right.
So line division helps ease that cognitive overload when you do things in the proper place. But that takes practice and understanding the guideline. Even sometimes I'm like, do my break here or break there. So it's just a lot of practice, but it's just something to be aware of and pay attention to because people like me have depended on Caption for many, many years. We notice these little things. People who enjoy Caption, not because they depend on it, are less likely to catch these little things that make a difference.
Right. No, I think I use page breaks a lot to be able to drive emphasis. And make sure that it ends where it wants and it picks up where I want it to. Because if I'm not using bold and I'm not using yellow or green, then that's a way that I can, then that's why I like it. I want to set it up to where the breaks are where I want it. I don't want it to follow some generic path. Okay, so this is a big one. And I know your rule, but it just kills me. So I stutter sometimes. Or I'll repeat myself, or I find a lot of people in interviews will start a sentence and then maybe change their mind and then kind of stop and start a new sentence, which is a great place to put a break on the caption. Your rules say that you want to read and see in the caption all my I. But the question is, should it accurately reflect or should it be easier for you to consume? And I think I know your answer, but it seems a little counterintuitive if it doesn't really add that much value, or, there's 4 eyes and I can take it down to 2, it's a really soft, squishy, no easy answer problem. So how do you address things like that?
It's a tricky one. It's very hard to have a black and white on that one. If it's like your video, it's a business video, and somebody says then a lot, I will not include them because it does detract from, you're trying to focus and you're saying then so much that you can't make sense. I know somebody with Tourette's, which is, they stutter, they say certain words over and over. They may. Anyway, I love how they caption that. They skip, I can't remember exactly how they did it, but it just made it easier to follow. I wish I can remember exactly what they did, but it was very clever. However, professional TV, like news networks and TV shows, they need to have it because usually there's a reason for it. So if a character is stumbling, or obviously nervous, it tells you something about their personality and how they're responding to a situation. They're nervous, they're lying. It can communicate a lot of things because we rely on text. Don't forget, we don't usually have sound cues. So we may not hear that nervousness in their voice. People like me don't.
Right.
So those words give you a hint into that person's personality or current situation or feeling. But when it comes to, just your videos, my videos, I leave it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I might, I change my words a little bit. I thought to say something, then I change. I caption as best as I can, reflecting that, and maybe put ellipsis, I change my direction. It's one of those, you just have to go on your best. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you shift sentence, it's a great place to put a page break, because then suddenly that text doesn't look so awkward. If you put that page break and then the next caption is a nice sentence. And then what's funny thinking about professionals, hopefully most of them don't have a lot of crutch words. They've worked it out of their system if they're doing professional broadcasting. So it is part of the character, or it is part of the script if they're, doing something versus just regular people and we all have our little crutch words and we stumble. We're just not that good. Okay. So that's good. Okay. Here's another one, which is quiet and sounds and different voices. And you've got a whole video dedicated to, don't leave out the quiet. There's stuff going on there that you can communicate. So how do you think about communicating either silence, laughter, different things that are not speech, or silence, I guess, or music? I love music on the movies. It tells you you're supposed to be nervous, like nervous music.
Well, sound, it depends. If you see somebody laughing, they don't typically caption that sound, but if it's coming out from another room, they'll put it in brackets, laughter, and show that it's coming from somewhere else. There's lots of creative ways to deal with that. That's why I got frustrated with Stranger Things. They captioned every single sound on Earth in season 4. It became the caption show. Some people disagree with me. Some deaf people disagree with me, and that's okay. Like I said, you'll never get 100% agreement on caption. But I felt like after every episode, I was so tired because I was reading so much and missing the action on the screen. But they were captioning things that were so quick and not even important, and that you could see happening. I remember the scene when one of the kids was hiding in a trailer, and he was making himself like SpaghettiOs. He opened the can, cut that can open, slapped the food into a bowl and nuked it. Well, they captioned every single one of those sounds. I'm like, oh my God, that's what I call overload. It's too much. I'm like, obvious and those sounds are not important. So he's not in hiding where he has to be quiet and he's making other noise with clapping. And then you do want to note when there's a long period of silence. Otherwise, we start wondering if something's wrong with the caption.
Right.
That's what happened. I remember there was the opening of a show. I can still see it in my mind. And I'm watching it. And like, I can't tell if there's music or if there's, I didn't have my implant on, my bionic ear on. And I'm like, the caption's messed up. I mean, it went on for a really long time. So that can be resolved easily with a simple note down. Silence, that kind of thing. So we do need to know when there is no sound, otherwise we start wondering those problems.
It's funny when I make posts when I don't have video, if I'm making a post from a podcast and I put closed caption against, a slide, I put an audio waveform just so that there's something to fill in between when the captions are on and off so that you can see there's, it didn't pause, it didn't stop, it didn't freak out. But do you know the expression Foley effects? Do you know Foley effects from making movies? So basically, the Foley effect guy is the guy that makes the microwave door.
Foley, yeah.
Foley, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe the director of that other show must be a Foley guy. So he just likes all those sounds and wants to make sure they all get their proper credit. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I have seen those podcast clips you're talking about, the very short teaser clip, and a lot of them for a while. I haven't seen any lately, thankfully, because I find the waves distracting. I was having a hard time paying attention to the caption when they kept basically doing this to me.
Right.
And I can't read the caption when it's constantly fluttering in my face. So it bothers me. I can't speak for everybody, of course.
Right.
But I just find it distracting. But I am not ADHD or have certain disabilities that might be easily distracted by something like that. Well, or they may benefit from it because sometimes people who have ADHD benefit from having emotion so they can focus better because they need to have two things going on.
Right.
I know because my whole family has it. So I know how that goes sometimes.
Okay, another topic, identifying speakers. So most of my videos are pretty simple. It's talking head and it's either a single shot or a double shot. And so I unless it's not obvious, I try to keep the closed caption in the middle. If we speak over one another, which happens, then usually I'll put the name, Jeff said this and Meryl said this.
Yeah.
Is that the right way? Do you bounce it back and forth? I think you often talk about the tennis effect. You don't like tennis match spectating in terms of the back and forth with your head.
Simply, you would put the person's name in bracket. That's it. Just Meryl and bracket. So if we're both kind of like when I was saying right, when you were saying something, they can put both lines, put your line and my line, saying right with my name, yours with your name, Jeff. And that will keep it clear. You're right, talking heads don't really have a problem. And talking heads with two people generally don't have a problem because usually whoever's speaking, I mean, if the other person speaking, but the video is on, the one not speaking, it's obviously the other person speaking and they're listening. So with two people, that's pretty easy to figure out.
Okay.
But there have been times when two people are in a conversation on a TV show and you don't see their faces very well. And you're like, wait, which one does that? Because that was important. But it doesn't happen often, but occasionally there's just something important and you really need to know who said what.
Right.
So it's just very easy to fix by adding the name and bracket, and that's all you should write.
Okay, so this is something, I don't know if it's not in any of your rules that I do, which is actually give more information in the closed caption than is in the dialogue. So for instance, if somebody says ADA, and you said ADA, I might caption that if the duration works and I can get the ADA at the end of the top line. Underneath, I might say Americans with Disabilities Act. I do that a lot with acronyms because a lot of people will speak or the acronyms and you never know if the audience knows what those acronyms are. So I'll often use the second line to punch in the real thing. Or if somebody mentions a piece of research or something, sometimes I'll use that second line to put like the title of the research. I mean, I'll have it in the notes in the webpage, but it seems like, a good opportunity if someone's never heard of the such and such and such and such, that if you've got space, you put it down there. So now it doesn't match the dialogue, but it does add interesting information and again, most of my stuff's on demand. So you could pause it, read it, and then pick up the conversation. Anyone do that? What do you think about that? She's shaking her head.
Generally, the rule is what is said, what is heard should be captioned.
Okay.
Therefore, if it's not said or heard, it shouldn't be captioned because you're adding more load and it's not being said. And plus, because it's not said, the next thing after ADA is going to be said and not add more text. So in that case, I would just put it in the notes or in the post itself, or in the comment. There's lots of opportunity just when it sticks to, but there has been an interesting thing. There's a show called What's My Line? And they have a lot of puns based on sound. So one of the ones that stuck in my head, I don't know why. So they were talking about somebody who's a DJ. And the word holla, 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 holla comes up. Well, the guy was the DJ at Bar Mitzvah. So they made a joke that challah, as in challah, the Jewish bread, the braided bread. It was a play on words, challah. So what they did was they put challah, CHALLAH, in the caption, but next to it in parentheses was HOLLA, which is what they were. And that was well done because it was short and to the point, and it helped clarify the pen because some deaf people may not get the pen because they've never heard the voice, so they don't know what it sounds like.
Right.
So that was clever and effective in that case. And they do that on Password, the game show Password, where Jimmy Fallon has a tendency to say things in a certain way to try to get people here, like imitate an actor. The captions will let us know he's imitating. And one time, I have a video clip. He was imitating the Minions, the little yellow characters.
Little cartoon guys.
And the caption said Minion. So I knew exactly what he was doing and saying that password,
So he's doing it in the voice of the Minions, so they're letting you know that he's acting like the Minions. That's funny. So I don't know, maybe there's a future in adding more information into this thread. That's interesting. Okay, so unfortunately though, there's a new trend that basically breaks every single one of Meryl's rules, and it's actually part of the catalyst why I reached out to you to say we have got to do this sooner rather than later, because I'm seeing it all over on YouTube Shorts. I'm seeing it on Instagram. I don't really do TikTok, but I think it comes from TikTok. And this thing, it even has a name. It's called the Hormozi Captions, which is, I guess, named after this guy. I looked it up, Alex Hormozi. And it's just like everything the opposite of what's in your list. It's one word at a time. It's colorful. It pops. It moves. The fonts change. It's all over the place.
It keeps changing.
What is going on? And it feels like, and you're in the business, that people are confusing the purpose of the closed caption to communicate information, which is what you always say, make it clear, make it concise, make it easy to read, or nothing else matters, versus this new graphic element that they now can play with, that they can just go crazy and throw these things in all over the place. And then the other one that came up in your rules, which is surprising to me, is just all caps, because there's no visibility in seeing a word versus reading a word if it's in all caps. So I wonder if, what do you think when you see these Hormozi things and all these artsy fartsy captions out there?
I put a video out there, it's a side-by-side video of the Hormozi versus plain old boring caption, and the majority of people could see why the whole emoji was the problem. A few people prefer the flashy stuff, but like I said, it was very small. The majority did not. And it was detracting, it was harder to read. And archive had nothing different. A friend of mine, friend, did. So he wrote the word airplane in archive. He drew a square, a rectangle around it, because that's the shape it makes. But when you put it in lower letters, lowercase, he was able to make a shape of an airplane. So all caps have no visual. It's the same. It's either a square or a rectangle, depending how long the word is.
Right.
Whereas mixed case or sentence case has more visual differentiation, and it makes it easier to read. And yes, there are tiny percentage of people who do better with all caps. But again, the tiny percentage. That's why customizing caption is the best option. And a lot of places offer all caps as an option. Then there's my favorite karaoke style caption, which is basically the word is highlighted as a triangle spoken. That's why I call it karaoke style. And it's so distracting. My eyes start following the karaoke and does not get the idea of the message, because it's playing follow the ball, and it's not reading, it's not absorbing the information. However, there are tiny percentage of people who benefit from that as well. And that is also an available option in some streaming networks where you can have each word highlighted. But when you're talking majority, you're neglecting that. And unfortunately, Instagram, they've got like 5 different variations of captions you can choose from. And the very first one, change your size, it's all caps, it's just, yeah, it's like that. And I think people should go with it because that's the default.
Right.
So it's like they need to make the acceptable one the default, and people don't change. Anyway, so the reason captions are boring and have been boring all these years is because they work. They are not meant to be the show. They are not meant to be the star. The video and the content of the video is supposed to be the star. And this emoji stuff is taking away from that. If the company making the video cannot make good content, they shouldn't be making the video at all. If they depend on their emoji caption to get eyeballs, to get people to pay attention, then the content could be better.
Right.
That's what I think.
Right. Yeah, and it's like the whole videos. It's like a whole industry now of how to make those things. It's not
Oh my God.
good.
Yeah, there's so many websites and apps that add caption, and they do the fancy stuff, and they're giving people choices, and people don't know the best practices. They don't know these things. They don't look into it. And I'm not frustrated with them. I just know that they don't live with captions every day like I do. That's why I'm out there educating every day, because I can only reach the tiny percentage of the world through LinkedIn or wherever I'm posting.
Well, hopefully we'll get you a little bit more reach after this. But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the change in technology and how that's changing everything. Because you mentioned when you were a little girl, you had some manual machine you had to hook up to the TV. We've seen a lot of progress within AI, and we used to use a service like Rev AI, and I used to joke, they had a person generated closed caption, or you could buy the computer generated closed caption, and I think the price difference was like 10x, and the computer generated one, this is years ago, was only about an 80% solution, and you almost spent as much time fixing it as you would have had if you just tried to do it yourself. The technology has come a long way. I do my Adobe closed captions now right here on my laptop, and it's not a 100% solution, but it's come so far. How do you see kind of the change in technology and making it a little bit easier for people to start to add this feature to their videos?
AI can't work by itself. It needs to have human intervention because it is never 100% correct. And it also depends on the sound quality, the video quality. If we've got both got microphones, good chance it'll be a little more accurate than otherwise. But of course, I have an accent, a deaf accent, and those apps are biased against my accent, even though most people I meet understand me and they understand most of what I say, not 100%. So you can say my voice is like automatic caption, so not completely perfect in my pronunciation, but that's okay. I know that. Yeah, I joke about it.
Right.
I remember when I first tried Instagram auto caption, and it was so much work to fix it. They've gotten much better. I still have to fix it every time, but now it's just a few things instead of a lot. So it's a great starting point. The key is to edit it.
Right.
And they've saved you so much time editing. Otherwise, if you don't, just one word, one letter can throw you off and you're confused. I have a video screenshot of a song on a Super Bowl, and one letter was wrong, and we didn't have to throw the whole lyric out. It was like, it did not make sense at all. That's how much, so 80% is not important. 95% is not important because you're missing just enough words and letters to not get the whole idea.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I had a run where I was interviewing a bunch of people with British accents. And I think if I had set it up to just say British accent, it would have worked fine. But having a American accent and a British accent on the same interview, it just destroys the automatic closed caption. It just cannot deal with the, I don't know if it's because their expressions are slightly different and their kind of emphasis on words and their accent on words is different, but they struggled. So don't feel bad. It's not just
Yeah, see, that's another thing about automatic AI. Even if somebody was born speaking English, if they have an accent that's British, Australian, Canadian, but they grew up, that all they speak is English. It doesn't work with their accent. I mean, it works better than mine, but it's different from a standard basic American accent, not something that's really heavy, like maybe Boston or.
Right.
Sorry, no offense, Boston. I'm just trying to think of an example of how sometimes the southern draw might be hard to tell. Yeah. So AI is biased, and in that it expects perfect American English with no emphasis, no heavy accent in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So shifting gears a little bit about with COVID and what happened with COVID. So you gave your TED Talk after COVID. So congratulations on your TED Talk.
Thank you.
One of the themes that comes up over and over, whether it's the future of work or many, many things, is that COVID was an accelerant to things that were already underway. And you talk about normalizing in your TED Talk with your son, that it's normalized to have text on screen. For me, I think, when the NFL did the draft and Goodell was in his basement, that kind of normalized video calls. And, it made it, if the NFL can do it, then it's okay. So COVID really changed, I think, everyone's perception of closed captions, everyone's acceptance of closed captions, the perceived value outside of an ADA context. So I wonder if you can speak about how COVID has kind of changed people's reception to your messaging.
Well, like you said, Jeff, COVID accelerated the need to put caption out there because before COVID, June, Microsoft Teams, they did not have captions. And after COVID, like within 4-5 months, they had them. But it was complicated on how to turn them on. In fact, I still run into Zoom accounts that don't have caption turned on yet. They don't know it. There's one step every single Zoom account must do one time, and one time only. Then everything, it'll always have captions. But 2 weeks ago, I ran into an account that didn't have it turned on yet. So that's what happens when a product is not born accessible. If June had built the product with Caption from the beginning, it wouldn't be too complicated. But that's another story. So as we all went to video calls all the time, people were finding they needed Caption, not just the deaf and hard of hearing, but others. And it was just a huge step towards normalizing accessibility. So I use Caption as a great starting point. So when we all see it and we run into it every day, it becomes no big deal. Right. Therefore, all accessibility should be like that. We need to learn to accept there will always be ramps in the right places. Now, ADA says you have to have a ramp if you have a building, right? But it does not mean that you have to put it in the best place. It just says you have to have a ramp. It doesn't say how to make it a good experience. So, for example, you have a restaurant. You put the ramp around the back of the restaurant, but all your customers are coming in the front. It's not fair for that one customer who uses a wheelchair to have to go around the back. That's not a good user experience. So that's my whole, Captions have definitely exploded because of the pandemic. We're seeing so many apps. I mean, my God, has a list of apps. The list keeps getting longer. And I'm like, I don't know why some companies bother with it because there's too much competition now. Yeah. So I hope that carries over to other accessibility things.
Yeah. It's good news. I mean, I had Ryan Anderson on from Miller Knoll, big design company, and they talk about inclusive design. So trying to think of the person who needs the help first. And if you designed with them in mind, generally there's benefits to everybody else too. Even as this closed caption thing, as we've been talking about, it benefits a lot more than just people that can't hear. There's all these kind of secondary benefits that maybe people don't think about, or maybe not as obvious until they get into it a little bit.
Yeah, that's why there's a great cartoon of a whole bunch of people trying to get into a building and there's snow all over the ground, and the person is shoveling the snow off the steps. And a person who uses the wheelchair says, well, if you shovel the ramp first, then we can all get in. And the person says, when I'm finished with shoveling the step, I'll do the ramp. It's like, oh my gosh, clear the ramp before you clear the stairs, and you get everybody in.
That is really
universal design.
That's a good one. So simple and clear. I love it. All right. Well, Meryl, getting to the end of our time, and I've really enjoyed it. I got a few more questions, but I want to give you the last word to kind of encourage people. What should they think about when they think about captions? What are the most common problems that you see that people have that they have to get over so that they can have better captions on their media and get better leverage on their media?
Well, there's a lot of things I see, but I would say captions are not meant to be your brand. They're not meant to represent your brand. In other words, if your brand colors are orange and white, the captions are not going to be orange and white if you want them to be accessible. In fact, orange and white are not accessible colors because the contrast is very small. So somebody who has trouble with that is not going to be able to see your words at all. And if they have to sound off, that's even worse. So stick with brewing caption. More people will get your message, more people will benefit, and you will get to expand your reach.
Great. Well, thank you, Meryl. It's been a real treat. And if they need more information, they go to meryl.net. There's all kinds of information and side-by-side comparisons and statistics on the use of captions for people that aren't hard of hearing, or just a ton of wealth of information. And what's the best way then to contact you?
They can go through meryl.net or email me at me@meryl.net.
And you're on LinkedIn and Twitter and all these other platforms too, right?
LinkedIn, good, yeah.
All right. Well, Meryl, thanks again. It's been a real treat, and glad we're finally able to get this together.
Yeah, me too, Jeff. It was a real treat for me too.
All right. She's Meryl. I'm Jeff. You're watching Turn the Lens. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening on the podcast. Take care. Thank you. That was great, Meryl.
That was good. I was very happy with it.